Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Collegian Football Podcast. Alexis, it's whiteout week. Let's do it. It is a great time to be in State College right now. The campus is buzzing. I've seen some Auburn shirts already here.
Really? That's something I haven't seen yet.
Yeah. No, I was just taking a walk by the game day setup, which already is looking
amazing.
Is looking pretty cool. And there were plenty of Auburn people here. Obviously, Penn State alumni already coming up, and there's just, that buzz on campus like we talked about at the beginning of the year. It's amplified to even more of a grand scale than it had been for Ball State, of course.
This is amazing. I cannot wait for this game. I know everybody else cannot wait for this game. It's been long awaited, this matchup, this atmosphere for players, students, alumni, like everybody. Everybody's anticipating this matchup, and it's not going to disappoint either.
Yeah, and before we get into the pod, I also wanted to bring up, I feel like social media has been buzzing way more than usual because, Auburn fans are kind of taking, I feel like, every Penn State-related tweet to heart. They're like, every Beaver Stadium tweet that is, talking about it being, the best atmosphere in college football. They're like, oh, you guys have never seen the SEC.
But you've never seen the whiteout.
Yeah, so, there's obviously some good banter going on back and forth, but, that's just been fun to see on the timeline. But, it's going to be a real great environment, just not only from, of course, a whiteout perspective, just I'm sure Auburn fans are going to be there. There's going to be, a camaraderie going around and hopefully no fights. But we should be good to go. It's Happy Valley.
Yes, exactly.
And obviously, as we transition here a little bit, there's been no shortage of news within the Penn State program this week. And that obviously starts with James Franklin as we found out earlier this week that Clay Helton of USC was going to be fired by the program. And as always, it seems, James Franklin's name popped up at the top of the interest list for the Trojans. And this is something that, has kind of always been a story around James. He's kind of been linked to USC for a few years now. And now that Clay Helton's been fired, he has been at the top of the talks. And it was something he had to address in his first two press conferences starting on Tuesday.
Yeah, and Franklin's always a big believer in we're not going to have any distractions, and usually he shuts down this kind of stuff. If anything from weeks coming up, weeks past, he'll automatically shut down and be like, nope, we're focused on this opponent this week, going 1-0 against this opponent this week. This week it was a little bit different. He really didn't shut down those talks as much. He elaborated on it a little more, I don't know, I didn't address it with my team yet. I'm going to talk to my leadership council. I'm going to talk to my coaching staff, and we'll go from there. I'm not going to give any more information about that, which is very intriguing that he's not, not talking about it, but he's leaving a lot of speculation out there. He's not squashing it, so that the possibility is open for him to leave Penn State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, someone asked at his post-practice availability yesterday, Wednesday. They said, why don't you just say no, that you're shutting it down and that you're not going to be, contemplating this or whatever it is, even just bring it up with his team. Yeah. Why don't you just say, no, I'm not leaving? And to me, that would be such a mistake on his part, honestly, because this is all – we've seen this before. This is for leverage. Yeah. And it's either – not that he makes any shortage of money. He's the highest paid state employee in Pennsylvania. But this could be to get his assistants more money. Yep. This could be to continue to upgrade the facilities. Obviously, the Latch building has just gotten some beautiful renovations.
Which is very important for recruiting, too.
Yes, absolutely. But I'm glad you actually brought up the recruiting thing because, to me, it would just make not absolutely no sense, but just pretty much not really feasible, or just not really make that much sense for him to leave, just because he is the number one recruiting class in the country next year, and just he's so established with the recruits, especially in this area, that obviously we know how talented a recruiter he is, but he has such a repertoire in this area of being, this big time coach at a big time program, and leaving to me would. It could hurt his legacy, honestly, because he has such an established pedigree here.
Yeah, for sure. And something that one of our fellow reporters, our editor, brought up yesterday, Max Ralph, in his column, where he discussed, James Franklin and the possibility of him going to USC. In his opening press conference, when he first got hired at Penn State, he said, "This is my dream job."
Mm-hmm.
And if he would go back on that, that would be extremely contradicting. It would be extremely hurtful to pretty much everybody that has listened to him say that. And he is very proud of his job, and he always really expresses that. And as you said, he will use that leverage to get more money for his assistants, get some upgrades for these facilities that just keep seeming to get upgraded as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
But in the recruiting game, as you said, he has no reason to leave when he has so much talent coming in. And if you take a look at the USC program in comparison to where Penn State is now, they're really not as far along in their current state as Penn State is. And, he would be taking on an extremely large responsibility to rebuild that program. Why would you leave a program that, you essentially rebuilt in the time that you came here to now? Because look at the difference between when Franklin first got here and where they are now. It's completely different. He would essentially be doing the same thing by leaving Penn State and going to USC, which I think would be a bad move on his part.
Yeah, I agree there. And I was kind of last night just contemplating what would be the reasons that he would leave. And the only things I could really think of are this. He would probably have a better chance to make it to the playoff, just considering that he doesn't have to play Ohio State every year. I guess Oregon would probably be their toughest matchup.
Yep.
And they're in the North Division of the Pac-12 too. So they're pretty much guaranteed, like if he can just put it together there, that they would make the Pac-12 championship pretty much perennially. And also from a standpoint that James is the type of coach that he's such a rah-rah type of guy. And, obviously loves, they bring in Keegan-Michael Key. They bring in all these former players. And that's something that almost kind of reminds you of what Pete Carroll did when USC was in their heyday in the early 2000s. And he could kind of bring that type of culture that could put USC back on the LA map. Because, remember, this isn't State College, Pennsylvania we're talking about. We're not talking cows and corn. This is LA.
Yeah.
And you got to compete with the Lakers. You got to compete with the Dodgers and everything else that goes on there.
Yeah.
And I could see him really recruiting that state well. I'm not going to lie. And, he could –
would be interesting to see.
he could definitely – it makes sense how much they want him.
Yep.
Because they simply need to recruit better. And that's obvious with how they've done over the past few years, USC. But – him being able to take what he's done in the Northeast and bring it to California, I think it would be easily applicable to USC, just considering how he's been able to recruit a place like Penn State, which, of course, is a phenomenal football school and a great place if you're a college player looking to play in a college football atmosphere. But think about it, if he can recruit State College, think about how well he could probably recruit Los Angeles.
Yeah, very good point.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think we need to give our hard yes or no answer. Will James Franklin stay with Penn State?
Yes.
I'm going to agree with you.
Easily. Again, last time we're going to bring it up, this is a leverage thing, and it would not make any sense for him not to take the call.
Yep.
And which I think it's kind of obvious that he has. And it's something where he is going to have to make a decision. Do I prefer to, keep what I've built, or do I want to take on a new challenge? And I think he is very content with where he's at right now.
Couldn't agree more.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a look at last week's matchup against Ball State.
Let's do it quick because I want to get into Auburn.
Yes.
And this game was not much of a contest from the start. I mean, they sort of dominated on both sides of the ball. I also wanted to throw in there that Sean Clifford continues his turnoverless streak. Not going to jinx that. So if he can continue to do that this weekend, that's going to be critical. But
absolutely,
against Ball State, him not turning the ball over, there was really no chance that they were going to, lose that game. And I don't know what you thought about it, but I just thought it was all around just a really solid effort.
They did what they needed to do to win and more. The defense keeps playing consistent as they did against Wisconsin. And that's really the momentum that they need going into this contest against Auburn. And the offense was very efficient in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And, they really spread the wealth. 10 receivers caught a pass.
It's impressive.
On set. That is very impressive. And I also want to throw out there that I think tight end play got put into this game a little bit as Theo Johnson caught his first touchdown pass from Taquan, who threw his first touchdown pass.
Mm-hmm.
And Taquan got into the game. Taquan Roberson.
Yeah, it was really good to see that they were able to get some of their depth guys in there. That's something that they really sorely missed last year when they were not playing non-conference games. And just being able to have that, especially in front of a crowd for the first time, it's just an invaluable experience for them. And being able to play on that stage and do it with some of the starters in, some of the starters out, and just being able to mix it up a little bit. It's got to be good for James as well, because that gives Auburn a little less film on the starters. And obviously it's always nice to do it when you win comfortably as well.
Yeah, definitely. And two players I think we could point out from this contest. Jesse Lucetta. He just keeps impressing. I mean, what can't this guy do at this point?
Yeah, obviously he starts out at the middle linebacker spot because of the first half suspension to Ellis Brooks, and he looks great there. Was really doing a good job at stopping the Ball State run game. Was incredibly efficient there, and then he moves back to defensive line, and he gets a freaking pick six, like
one-handed pick six.
Oh my God, I love those. Are like my favorite pick sixes, the ones that get tipped at the line. The defensive lineman runs in for a touchdown. Like I just love those, and because Jesse's an athletic guy, but I love the ones that are just like 300 pounds and are just rumbling to the end zone. But it was really good to see. He has just been the star through 2 games defensively for them. Him and Jaquan Brisker, I'd say, and if he can continue this, especially against the really stout Auburn running game, which we're gonna get to in a sec. It's going to be huge for Penn State, and this is something maybe they weren't expecting coming into the year. And we've talked about the loss of Adisa Isaac and what that meant. We haven't really talked about that very much.
That hasn't been a factor so far.
Which is unbelievable for Brent Pry and that defense. Granted, it's through 2 games, but
they're not missing a beat.
That's something that's really – he's been their basically X factor so far, considering – that was going to be a potential weak spot for them heading into the year.
Yep. Second player we want to point out, Jordan Stout.
Made the kicks.
Well, almost.
Yeah.
Almost
well,
all.
He missed the one, but it didn't matter.
Yeah, but he had we got to we can't even keep track of the touchbacks anymore. There needs to be a new role.
They might as well just put the ball at the 20 every time. And, I mean, the punting has been really, really good. And he's doing what he has to do right now to potentially make the NFL, like we've always said. And he's got the boot to do it. And, we've seen it. And he was very candid, I think, on his media session this week. He was just like, someone asked him what happens when he missed those kicks. Like, is it a issue with the snap? Is it just an issue mentally? He's like, Chris Stoll, the long snapper, has been phenomenal. Rafael Checa, who is the holder, has also been great. And he's like, I just got to make my kicks. And that's something that, his kicks looked mostly good last week, aside from that one missed field goal. But, again, they might need him against this game with Auburn. So
I picked them winning by a field goal. So
we'll see. We'll see. But, all right, so enough of Ball State. I want to get into Auburn right now. Let's talk about this game. First off, we'll talk about, Auburn's offense a little bit. They have played, I think it's Akron and Alabama State to start this year.
Oh, my gosh. 60 and 62 points.
Yeah, and 0 and 10 points for the defense.
Yes.
So they've dominated so far. And James Franklin was talking about yesterday just how hard it was to be able to watch film on them. Because of these games, I mean, they've probably been playing their reserves for a good amount of the second half in these games. So obviously, he said he's even resorted because Brian Harsin, guy was at Boise, and their coordinators, he says he's been watching those games just to try to get a sense of what they're going to be running, what they're going to be doing defensively. And it's just really tough. It makes these non-conference games at the beginning of the year really tough because you really don't see these guys. And I think that Auburn might have a little bit of an advantage here in the fact that they have that whole Wisco game of tape, which was pretty much Penn State's best.
Yeah.
That it put best display of football that it put on this season so far. So that'll be a factor, but at the same time, I think that they kind of know what they're getting with this team.
For sure. Looking specifically at their offense, this is a run-heavy offense with on it. Let me point out first that Penn State and Auburn, I'm pretty sure they are the only two teams that both have a running back with the first name of Tank.
Yes.
I
can't confirm, but I can almost confirm that.
Yeah, let's put a question mark next to that one.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tank Bigsby and Harquez Hunter, two running backs that Penn State's really going to have to be aware of here. As I said, this is a run-heavy offense. Run defense is gonna have to be at the top of its game in order to contain these two.
Yeah, Jarquez Hunter. I saw this tidbit today, and I didn't even believe it at first. He's their backup running back, and he has more yards than every starting running back in the SEC right now.
Insane.
So that just shows you
that's some depth there.
What Auburn's offense has been able to do. Granted, Akron, Alabama State. But this is
talent
a team
nonetheless.
Yeah, no, this is a team that's going to use them heavily. And obviously we've seen them play a run-heavy team in Wisconsin, and we've seen them succeed against them. But this is a whole new thing because you have a quarterback in Bo Nix as well, who almost reminds me a little bit of Graham Mertz from the fact that he's underachieved after being a big recruit. We're talking about a 5-star recruit that Bo Nix was. He was a huge get for Gus Malzahn at the time, and this could be a career definer for him. He is Auburn's 2-0. They look great. This is his first big game as a third-year starter. He's the fans are going to be pushing for him to perform, and if he can't, then there's going to be some serious question marks around him. But he performs on the national stage like that and gets a win in front of probably one of the most hostile environments there is. That's a Kickstarter to a career.
Yeah, most definitely. And, communication is obviously going to be at a minimum for their offense, but, going to have to be on the same page there in order for Bo Nix to have a career-defining game at Penn State. And, this is going to be really interesting because, Auburn has put up huge numbers so far this season. As we said, to lackluster opponents, but it's impressive to put up 60 points nonetheless. But Penn State's defense is only giving up 11.5 points so far this season. So who's gonna break through in this game? And it's gonna have to be based on consistency. You're gonna have to no big plays. Penn State can't give up any big plays, any big run plays, any big plays down the field in the air. This is just going to be a juggernaut. This is going to be a great matchup.
I think that the key for Penn State's defense is going to be, forcing Bo Nix to use his athletic ability, which he does have some athletic ability, but forcing him to make the big play and to possibly entice him into making a mistake is something I could definitely see happening. And another thing I was thinking about, just with this game, I've been watching. Of course, how can you not? I've been watching the whiteouts from the last 5-6 years. This week on YouTube, I watched them a bunch, and every game there's the one offensive guy who has that game. We saw it with KJ Hamler in the loss against Ohio State.
Yep.
We saw it with Saquon in 2017 with that run on the second play that was just unfreaking believable. And Jahan Dotson, I think it's his year. I think this is Jahan Dotson time for him to. They're gonna have the biggest crowd in 2 years in that stadium, and he last year did unbelievable things and led the Big Ten in receiving with nobody in the stands. And I think he wants to show everybody on primetime national TV, hey, you're not calling me a big NFL draft prospect. I'm going to show the country right now how good I am, and if you take me, you're not going to regret it. And so this is an opportunity for him to show that. And we've seen guys show that before for Penn State as well.
So, Justin, this is going to be the self-dubbed best receiver in college football's game to shine.
Yeah, I really think so. And I like the matchups defensively that they have. They have some good secondary and corner play, but at the same time, we've seen Jahan, especially this year so far, be able to work in multiple parts of the field, which is making him sort of a complete receiver. His route running has just gotten, I think, even significantly better than last year. And obviously, we've seen the speed he has downfield, but I think him being able to work himself open in the middle of the field has been a really big key for him this year. And if they're taking away the long ball, which I'm sure that's going to be something in their game plan because they've seen him catch how many big plays. But plays across the middle could be huge for them. And just him being able to kind of work that along with Parker Washington, along with Keandre Lambert, along with the tight ends, that could allow the Penn State offense to open up a little. And then once they contain that opens up the big play.
Yeah, absolutely. Justin, you want to get into your keys to the game?
My favorite part of the week, Alexis. First key to the game. Play to the crowd early. We have seen
110,000. It's happening.
We've seen it with the first play of the Michigan game in 2019. I mean, they had to call a timeout before a play was even ran. I mean, that's just that's priceless. That's unreal. It just teams. I was talking to Shock Tony this week, and for my whiteout article, I talked to him and Trace. They had some awesome things to talk about the whiteout, but Shaka talked about just how impactful that first play was. Not even just then, but as the game went on, because he goes when you're in front of that crowd for the first time, you can prepare for it. You can do all the crowd noise, all the stuff in practice you want. When you get in front of that crowd, it gets real. It'll rattle about just about anyone's cage, he said. And I was like, yeah, that is going to be a factor. So what do you think, what's the goal of a defense, right as the game is beginning to try to intimidate them? What is it? And he's like, just play to the crowd. You got to play to the crowd. You got to make a big play. Think about it. A sack on the first drive, that gets the crowd right into the game.
Yep.
You don't want them to do the opposite and take the crowd out of the game, because then once it gets quiet in there, that gives Auburn all the momentum it needs.
Yep.
So
you need that energy to be sustained from the start.
Yeah, so play to the crowd early. It's key number one. Key number two kind of relates back to the Auburn running game that we've just talked about being so successful so far. Force third and longs. Get big plays on first and second down defensively. Tackles for loss, sacks, incompletions, whatever it is. Yep. Don't let them get third and shorts, because that's where they're going to thrive. And I have a feeling that although the Penn State defensive line has played very well so far, that Auburn could have some success there if that's the case.
Yep, I think that Penn State's defense has already proven that they can eliminate big plays and eliminate those short situations, especially with their pass rushing and Arnold Ebiketie, and they've really been successful in that realm so far. So they just need to stay consistent with that, and they'll be able to accomplish that.
Mm-hmm. I also think that it'll put pressure on Bo Nix if he's to throw the ball on those long situations. You don't want them to be able to have options, and because we know, especially on third and longs, it's going to be rocking in that place. Yep. So it's going to be loud. It's going to be hard for them to hear the snap counts. If they're bunch formation on a 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1, they're going to be able to hear that better. So forcing them to spread out and forcing Bo Nix to make the big play is going to be, I think, key number 2 to this game. Key number 3, again, let's not jinx it. Sean Clifford, keep protecting the rock, brother. He has no turnover so far, and obviously that was his big bugaboo last year. Got Penn State down in a lot of games. He's got to continue to do that. It's the reason they won the Wisconsin game, and it was just nice to see him be able to keep that up last week.
Yeah, he's just playing more intelligently than he did last season, which, as you said, that took them out of a lot of those out of pretty much every single game at the beginning of this season. They could not win because they simply just didn't have the ball to score a lot of the times. And he's giving them opportunities to win now just by keeping possession of the ball, making smart decisions, and that's obviously going to have to continue in order for Penn State to win this game.
Yeah, I also think Sean is the type of guy, and this isn't a bad thing necessarily, who kind of, whether he does it intentionally or not, wears his emotions on his sleeve a little bit. And when he hasn't been turning the ball over the last 2 games, he's exuding that confidence that you like to see from him. And he's like just saying how much he likes working with Yurcich and how much he likes working with these receivers. And him not turning the ball over, that just continues to allow him to gain confidence. And if he is able to not turn the ball over again against an Auburn team, unless there's like the running backs fumble or they lose the explosive play battle, I just don't see how they lose this game, honestly. So ball protection going to be absolutely huge. They can't give away possessions. They're going to need points every chance they can get. And you got to let your offensive guys make plays. So putting them in a spot where they can and not turning the ball over is absolutely critical for them this weekend. Key number 3.
Awesome. And, points on the board means a rowdy crowd. And I think that we're going to have to get the Mobamba counter out again for this week.
Yeah. Give me a big play. Like, I don't want to say the first set of downs, just the first drive. Like I can't wait for just to be there and to see that first big play, just the rise of the crowd. And I mean, that's the stuff that just gets me going. Like, I just love it. And then just also for Sean this weekend, enjoy this moment too. Like, he's a redshirt senior. This could be his last Penn State whiteout. Like, have fun. Like, this is why
a lot of these guys too.
This is why you come to Penn State. Like, and we've talked about the opposite as well with guys like Parker Washington, who are sophomores, and the freshmen, of course. This is their first time, and they just should enjoy this moment. I know I would. Just enjoy the moment. Like, this is why you come to Penn State to play football. This is what James Franklin recruits them here to do. They have 300, or I think it was like something like that, recruits coming. They have so many recruits coming. Recruits and their families, I think. Not 300 recruits. But yeah, so it's just going to be an absolutely unbelievable atmosphere, and I am counting down the hours, honestly.
Yes, honestly. Enjoy the whiteout game, Penn State against Auburn. For Justin, I'm Alexis. Thanks for tuning into the Collegian Football Podcast, and we'll see you here next week.